Now, before the studio, you had a shop on Rampart Street. You tell folks what you did and what led to your involvement in the music business.
Well, during World War II, we had the jukebox business. We put jukeboxes in restaurants and bars on a commission basis. And back then, it was 78 RPM records. And then during the war, they were terrible quality. So every week, every popular record had to be replaced with a new copy of it. And we sold the used ones in our store to get a little money and bring people in to hopefully find somebody that had a location we might get or something like that. And because of bringing people in to sell the used ones, they started asking for new ones. So we started selling new ones. And the war ended, and we thought, well, it would be a great opportunity to open a store and sell new records and sell appliances, which hadn't been available for several years. And thought that should be a good market, at least for a few years. And so we opened a store on the corner of Rampart and Domain in New Orleans, called it the J&M Music Shop. And it was the partner's idea, not mine, the guy I was in partnership with, to put a little room in the back where people could make records. And it fell to me to run it. I was a little bit better technically oriented, I guess. And like Topsy, it just grew. More and more I did nothing but recording, and eventually moved out to just a recording studio.
Why don't you two tell them about what a regular session would be like, what the room was like, how you've been said to be, well, you tell him what he did, and you tell him what you did.
Until Dave made us focus, the first part of the session was jokes. Like, we can sit down now and tell jokes all day long. When I go down to New Orleans, all day long, we sit in his store. That's still in town, and you go to New Orleans. Anyway, but that's what the first part of the session would always be, because Dave would never break in. He was an authoritarian, but he wasn't a drag, so to speak.
He was fun.
He'd listen to a joke, and if you listen to one of his, he'd get a big laugh, but then it's time to go to work. But we'd spend half the day telling stories, every chance we got, and there was many to tell, too.
What was the room like in the original studio?
The smallest you've ever seen. And it's amazing.
It was the size of a decent-sized bedroom, 15 by 16 or so.
And he had the knack of knowing what mics could do what, and what was the most directional mic, because I've seen the time when they had 3 mics in that room and 7 musicians playing, and you could hear everything. And to this day, I believe that they spent millions of dollars making digital records to copy the sound that he got in that room with 3 mics. Or they could have made a room. They could have built a room cheaper than that.
Right.
Really?
Yeah. Well, the one thing that I strive to do, and if you know my story, I'm not a musician, and I wasn't in the business of recording. So it was, for all of us, in a lot of ways, it was OJT, on the job training. Mm-hmm. We learned as we went, and once I got into it, it's a trait of mine. I figured out I better find out how do people who do it well do it. And so I joined the Audio Engineering Society, and I bought books, and I did whatever I could, because New Orleans was really an island in the ocean compared to the rest of the United States, and technology and all that kind of stuff. We were in our own little world. In a lot of ways, we still are. But, no, right.
It was amazing. Excuse me, guys. It was amazing. Now you see guys with mics right on the bell of their horn. And you hear the horn just roaring and going. They're good fidelity and everything, but can you imagine 2 saxophones and a trumpet playing on 1 microphone that's hanging overhead? You got to know what mic to use to get those guys and get them each individually and separate. And the bass and the piano on the same mic. I could never figure it out. Sometimes I didn't have a mic at all. Somehow or another he got echo off the wall on me or something, but it was amazing.
It was like, well, you know, the engineers look for what they call a sweet spot. They'll move a mic around for where that, hopefully you find that sweet spot where things sound right. And my approach was to listen in the studio to what they were doing and then go in the control room and try to make it happen in there. So my place was to be transparent, just a pipe, and the music would go through the pipe and onto the record, and I didn't do anything to hurt it. And for the most part, that worked.